Ecosystems, a physically active lesson. Today, our focus will be on ecosystems. In this lesson, there is information as well as questions centered around this topic. Exercises are provided in this lesson to get you up and moving while you review the material. Make sure you have a safe space to move around. Remember, all of the living organisms and non-living things working together in an area create an ecosystem. In an ecosystem, organisms are dependent on the survival of other organisms. Energy is passed from one to another. Within an ecosystem, there are populations and communities. A population is a group of the same type of organism living in the same place at the same time. For example, a group of squirrels, groups of deer, even groups of owls. A community is a group of all different populations living together in an area. Sort of like this cute picture, all of these animals living together, but they each have their own population. We are going to dive into ecosystems by asking some questions about vocabulary associated with their ecosystems, specifically within food chains and food webs. Let's get started. Which of the following terms is an organism that eats non-living plant and animal remains and breaks them down to create nutrients for the soil? Examples are items like mushrooms, earthworms, and bacteria. Is it decomposers, omnivores, or herbivores? If you think it's decomposers, do 20 scissor kicks. Omnivores, 10 squats. Herbivores, 10 toe touches. Pause this video so that you can reread the question and participate in the exercise, and then hit play when you're ready to move on. The answer is decomposers. Here are pictures of a few decomposers: mushrooms, earthworms, and bacteria. Decomposers are extremely important to the food chain. They are responsible for making vital nutrients available to producers like ferns, grass, and trees. Let's look at another question. Which of the following are organisms that cannot make their own food? They must consume or eat other organisms for energy. Is this producers or consumers? If you think it's producers, I want you to do 20 cross crawls. If you think it's consumers, do 10 for 10 jump ropes. Pause this video so you can reread the question to yourself and do the exercises, and then hit play when you're ready. The answer is consumers. Here are some examples of consumers: sharks, mice, polar bears, and humans. We are examples of consumers. Our next question. Bald eagles only eat meat. Which of the following words describe this type of behavior? Is it herbivore or is it carnivore? If you believe it's herbivore, I want you to do 20 mountain climbers. If you believe it's carnivore, I want you to do 10 jumping jacks. Pause this video and reread the question and participate in your exercise choice, and then hit play to move on. The answer is carnivore. You should have done 10 jumping jacks. Which of the following are organisms that make their own food and get their energy from the sun? Is it producers or consumers? If you think it's producers, do 20 cross crawls. If you think it's consumers, do 10 for 10 jump ropes. Pause the video so you can reread the question and exercise your answer, and then hit play. Producers are organisms that make their own food. You should have done 20 cross crawls. Here are some producer examples: seaweed, grass, ferns, and trees. All of these producers get their energy from the sun and create their own food. Okay, let's see if you're paying attention. Why are producers important in an ecosystem? Is it because they break down material for the soil? They make food on their own from the sun, making that available to all other living things? Or is it because they eat other animals to help the food chain continue? If you think it's the first choice, you're going to jog in place for 20 seconds. If you think it's the second, you'll do 20 arm circles. If you think it's the third, you'll do 20 crab kicks. Please pause the video so you can reread the question and choose the correct answer with exercise, and then hit play when you're ready. Producers are very important in an ecosystem. They do make their own food from the sun, and that makes everything available to all other living things. Let's define the food chain. The food chain shows a transfer of energy from one organism to the other. It's also a single chain of animals gaining energy from one another. Here's a picture of a food chain. You'll notice that it starts with the sun. We have our producer, the grass, which creates its own food, which then contributes to the food for the grasshopper. The grasshopper becomes food for the snake, and the snake is food for the hawk. And when the hawk dies, its remains are decomposed by fungi, which then creates nutrients for the grass to grow again. That is the entire food chain that's pictured here. What is the energy source that begins the food chain? Is it the sun, the wind, or the animals? If you think it's the sun, I want you to do 20 sky punches. If you think it's the wind, 20 scissor kicks. If you think it's the animals, a 20-second plank hold. I'm going to give you some time to do the exercise, and then I will show you the answer. You should have done 20 sky punches. The energy source that begins the food chain is the sun. Look at these organisms that are on the screen. They are all part of a food chain. There is a field mouse, grass, grasshopper, sun, a hawk, mushrooms, and a raccoon. I'd like to see if we can put this food chain in order. What do you think the very first part of this food chain is? If you said sun, you are correct. That is our energy source. What is next? If you said grass, that's correct. It uses the sun to produce its own food. What comes next? The grasshopper is our first consumer that eats the producer, which is the grass. What comes after the grasshopper? The field mouse is our next part of the food chain. What comes next? The raccoon. The raccoon is next in this food chain. Which of the last two organisms is next in line in the food chain? The hawk is next, which leaves finally the mushrooms as our decomposer. Thank you for participating in this active review of ecosystems. Have a wonderful day.